Chapter 16. Zeke was walking. He had his glove on his head, and he was holding a wooden bat in his left hand. In his right, he tossed a baseball. He would drop it onto the bat, let it bounce, and catch it. Then he would drop it, bounce it twice on the bat, and catch it. Then he would drop it, bounce it as many times on the bat as he could, and lunge for it when it hopped off to the side. His record was 13 while walking, 22 stationary. He was walking to Frank and Dottie's house to find Henry. It was early, but he wanted to hit for a while and still have time to take Henry outside of town to the abandoned Smythe farm. Before the daily game started, he wanted to show him the old car in the horse stall and the rusted-out tools in the loft. When he reached the steps to the front porch, he stopped. 12, 13, 14, 15, and the ball skipped off to the side of his bat into the grass. He bent over, picked it up, and continued onto the porch. He could hear the phone ringing inside. He opened the screen door and knocked. Then he opened the front door. "Henry? Mrs. Willis? Is Henry here?" The phone kept ringing. Zeke stepped into the house and looked around. "Mrs. Willis!" he yelled again. A black cat ran downstairs in front of him and stopped about 3 steps up. It sat and stared. Zeke yelled again, this time louder. "Mrs. Willis!" The phone stopped ringing, and he heard something upstairs. He stepped onto the bottom stair and listened. The cat didn't move. "What?" he shouted. He thought he could hear one of the girls yell something back. He'd better wait a minute. He didn't just want to walk right up. He reached down to scratch the cat's ear, but there was a large bald spot, an oozing sore on its back that wrapped down around its side and chest. He didn't know how he'd missed it. The cat didn't have a collar. "I don't think you're supposed to be in here," he said. "Mrs. Willis would probably take you to the vet if we had one, but I'm not as nice." The cat opened its mouth and hissed at him. Zeke stepped back, and then he held his bat out over the cat and tapped it on the back. "Come on," he said, and tapped it again. The cat turned and tried to run up the stairs, but Zeke flipped it onto its side and dragged it writhing down the stairs with the bat on its belly. At the bottom, it flipped quickly back onto its feet and tried to bolt around him. Zeke kicked it, hurting the cat with the bat and his feet towards the door. He leaned over, pushed the screen door open, and tossed the cat onto the porch with his foot. He let go of the screen door, and its slam rattled shut as the cat collected itself and jumped back towards the house. Zeke expected the cat to run away, but it stood on its hind leg, clawing at the screen and staring at him with angry eyes. Zeke rubbed the scratches on his calf and shin and turned to look back into the house. "Hello?" he yelled up the stairs. "Can I come up? Is Henry here?" This time he heard a voice from somewhere, muffled but much clearer. "Don't come up!" "Is that you, Penny?" he asked, but the phone started ringing again. "I'll wait," he added, and then sat on the bottom step listening to the phone. But he wasn't patient. When the ringing stopped, he stood up and looked up the stairs. "I'm coming up," he yelled. "Just through to Henry's room." "Don't!" It was Anastasia. "Why not? Is Henry here?" "No, he's not." It was Penelope's voice. "Anastasia? Yeah? Where's your mom? She's up here too. Are you okay?" Anastasia didn't answer. Neither did Penelope. Then one of them screamed. Zeke ran upstairs. Penelope and Asia sat on the floor by their parents. Dottie's breathing was rattling in her throat. Frank breathed easily, but a pool of blood grew in the carpet at his side. The door boomed and rattled again. "You are young to know how to shut a door so well. Has someone shut it for you?" Anastasia crept to the door, put her eye to the small hole and looked out directly into the eyes of the black cat. The woman was holding the cat to the door. She laughed. Then she coughed, and it didn't seem that she would be able to stop, but she did, and when she did, she spoke again. Your blood is familiar to me, but it is not strong enough for this magic. I have met your sister, and she was weak. She was with the boy, Henry." Anastasia opened her mouth to answer, but Penelope poked her and put her finger to her lips. "You do not need to answer me," the witch said. Her voice was harsh. All the sweetness was gone. "Henry's blood is stronger. Just a little of his life has given me much." The door rattled again. Plaster on the wall cracked. "And I've known your mother. I met her before she grew old and fat. Her weak blood runs in your veins. Frances was bolder. We'll see if she wakes or if the sleep keeps her. I remember your grandsire, though the earth now chains him. I even know your mother's grandsire for a little while. It has been long since your family disturbed my mother's rest in the cold darkness, but it is always your family. I thought the way back had been lost, but disturbance came again. Where is the boy Henry that pricked me? I do not smell him." She grew silent. The girls could hear the phone ringing downstairs. Anastasia put her eye back to the door and saw the woman bent down and place the cat on the floor. The cat, crouching, hurried down the stairs. "She doesn't know what a phone is," Anastasia whispered to Penelope. "She sent the cat downstairs to find out." Then the woman coughed, and Anastasia saw her face. She had no eyes. Where her eyes ought to have been were swollen sores red against her white skin. Around the sores were trailing scratches of fingernails. Her head was shorn near bald, but the stubble of her hair was dark. Anastasia heard the front door open and the screen door slam. Someone was yelling. "It's Zeke," Penelope whispered. "He shouldn't come up. She'll gas him to sleep or something." "Penny," Anastasia said, "she doesn't have eyes. She must be blind. Is that why she can smell us?" "Don't come up!" Penelope yelled. Then the two of them sat and listened. They could hear Zeke yelling for their mother. "He didn't hear you." "Don't come up!" Penelope yelled. "Up!" she added. They both listened. "The phone stopped ringing," Anastasia said. "Do you think he'll answer it?" "Do you think he answered it?" "Zeke wouldn't answer somebody else's phone. I hope he leaves." "Penny, do you think she was lying about Mom maybe not waking up?" They both looked at Dottie, breathing slowly on her back. Blake was lying on her stomach. "I think Mom will be fine. I don't know about Dad. There's a lot of blood coming from his mouth, too. I don't know what to do." They heard Zeke again. The cat was hissing somewhere. Blake walked to the door, and Anastasia stood up and stuck her ear against it. She pulled back quickly. "The door's hot," she whispered, and she ducked down to peer through the hole again. This time she couldn't see through. It had been plugged. "What's Zeke doing downstairs? He really should go." Penelope yelled again while Anastasia looked for something to poke through the hole. The screen door slammed downstairs. The phone was ringing again. "Penny, I think she's trying to burn the door down." "Don't come up!" Penelope yelled. "Stop worrying about Zeke," Anastasia said. "We have to figure out what we're going to do. I don't want him to get hurt." "Because you like him," Anastasia muttered. Penelope wheeled on her. "Everybody likes him, and even if I didn't, I wouldn't want a witch to gas him. Because you love him." "Stop it, Anastasia." Penelope's voice hardened. "This is not the time." Anastasia sniffed. "We have to figure out what we're going to do if the witch gets the door open." "Well, there's nothing really that we can do," Penelope said. "She won't get it open. Dad never could." Anastasia dug her little finger into the keyhole. "Dad isn't a witch." "Yeah," Penelope said, "but he used a chainsaw." "I'm coming up, just through to Henry's room." Zeke's voice was loud and clear. "Don't!" Anastasia yelled. "Why not? Is Henry here?" No, he's not, Penelope yelled. Anastasia? Yeah? Where's your mom? She's up here too, she said. Are you okay? Zeke shouted. The girls heard a scraping behind them, and Blake jumped off Dottie. One of the windows was open, a crack, and the black cat was squirming through it. Penelope screamed, and Anastasia ran to the window and pushed it down. The cat's howl mixed with Penelope's while Anastasia pushed the window back up and tried to shove the cat's head out. It bit her hard on the hand and then dug its front claws into her wrist and pulled itself in. She shook her arm out the window, but the cat was wrapped around it. Then Blake was wrapped around it as well. Anastasia jumped up and down beside the window, jerking her arm as the cat fight climbed around it. The two cats flew off and out the window and rolled down the roof over the front porch. Anastasia looked at her bleeding arm and then watched as Blake broke free and ran back towards her. When he was in, she slammed the window hard, sat down on the bed, and tried not to cry. Blake was already relaxed, licking his own slight wounds next to her. The black cat pressed his face on the glass window, turned, and left. Who are you? Zeke asked. The woman stood on the landing and smiled at him. Her hair was long and black and seemed to be catching all of the light on the landing. Her pale eyes were the loveliest gray or green or blue that he had ever seen, but there was something strange about them. I'm the girl's godmother, she said. Her voice was lovely. He wanted her to talk more. I'm staying for a little while. Zeke stepped up one more stair, but her eyes didn't follow him, not at first. Why didn't you say anything? I was yelling. Were you? Yeah, Zeke stared at her. She was perfect, but he didn't think he would like it if she tried to touch him. Is Henry here? He asked. I heard the girls screaming, so I came up. Why didn't they want me to? Oh, they were being bathed, and the cats startled them. This made no sense to Zeke at all, but he didn't argue. Is Henry here? He asked again. I wonder. I was looking for him myself. I have something for him. Come here, and I will give it to you. You may pass it on when you find him. Zeke? Penelope's voice came through the door. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, Zeke said. Is the witch gone? Anastasia asked. Zeke looked at the mutilated door to grandfather's room and then back to the woman. She was still smiling. Your godmother's out here. What? Both girls said. Your godmother. She is not, Anastasia yelled. Run, Zeke, quick! She's a witch, and she's already gassed the mom, and Richard, and Dad's hurt. Zeke stepped back down another stair. Again, the woman didn't notice. She turned from the bedroom door and smiled towards where Zeke had been standing. We've been at all sorts of games today, she said, and then she started laughing. Her laugh was extraordinarily pleasant. Zeke couldn't leave, but then she coughed and his stomach tightened. She coughed again, and this time he saw clearly. The woman's hair was gone, and he didn't know what had happened to her eyes, but it was only a moment. She was laughing again and beautiful. He stepped quickly up the rest of the stairs onto the landing. He put his back to the wall across from her, next to the attic stairs, and watched, trying not to breathe. He was gripping his bat. The woman smiled even more broadly, put a finger to her lips, and looked where Zeke had just been standing. Do you know, she began in a whisper, but stopped. Her nostril flared only slightly, and then she turned her head slowly facing Zeke and poured her smile out on a spot on the wall just beside his head. Do you know of any other way into the room? She whispered. They've locked me out, and if I do not find a way to catch them, then I have to mix them a lamb pudding. Perhaps Henry could help. We could go find him together. She took a careful step towards Zeke, and then another. He slid slightly to the left. He saw her nose twitch, and then she adjusted her course. Then he slid back. One step later, she followed him. She was too close to him already, but he waited. "Some openings," she said, still smiling, "require boy's blood." Her hand, holding a small knife, flicked out towards him. He hopped up onto the attic stairs and jumped down behind her. He bumped into her as he jumped, and her arms swung out and around, but too slowly. She no longer tried to hide her flaring nostrils as she spun around, sniffing until she faced him. "Wretch," she said, "torturing my cat, my eyes. One sliced finger is all I need, but I'll slice more than that. I'll store you deep in the darkness where they only feed on fairies. You'll be left alive enough to feel it." Zeke was still backing up in front of her. He had both hands on the bat, and this time he was going to swing, but she stopped. "Fairies," she said to herself. "Fairies?" She laughed. "My mind has been too long wandering if I've missed the closing spell of the Faerun." She turned from Zeke and stepped towards grandfather's door.